for sure, it's women's time, but eventually we'll all come together, all genders, all races. It's about the heart, the common denominator, the compassion, the love, the loyalty, the integrity. It's going to unite us. We're going to fly right through the revolution into the evolution.
Welcome, welcome. It's so wonderful to be here with you. I am feeling a deeper wave of appreciation for this community and all that we are together. Thank you for being here and being part of this changing tide. I begin my beautiful leadership mentoring next week, and there's still time to jump in. If you're interested, please go to www.amisha.co.uk/leadership and book a call to find out more. You can also dive deeper into this community through our membership and support the making of this podcast. If you head over to allthatweare.org/support, and you will find out more about how you can join the membership. It's offered on a sliding scale. You get the same no matter which level of the scale that you join at, because what we're really trying to offer is a space where we don't just reward those that have more for having more, but we actually redistribute that wealth between our community. So you pay what you can, and we use what we get from the whole community to create more and more resources for everyone. Our guest today is Christina Tobin, an activist and leader in the election reform and voters' rights movements. She is the founder and chair of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. This nonprofit leads national, state, and local efforts to open the electoral process in the United States by hosting open, all-inclusive gubernatorial, presidential, and senatorial debates, organizing electoral reform symposiums, producing United We Stand tours, uniting the younger generations with musicians, artists, and thought leaders to promote political and cultural change, supporting individuals running for office, and creating a blockchain election assistant app to promote transparency and empower voters with information about all their candidate choices. It's been a real pleasure to connect with Christina here in Bali and our wider global community of changemakers. This episode is so important as American politics have such a big impact on our world. In this conversation called United We Stand, we explore the themes of hope, electoral reform, and system change technologies as we speak to the question, how do we catalyse political and cultural shifts that can transform our world? We hope that this conversation invites you to see where you can change the systems of power we live amongst and bring more freedom and equality into being. Welcome to All That We Are, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between activism, the sacred, creativity, and regeneration, the spaces where our inner and outer worlds dance. From healing trauma to nature connection, to new technologies to ancient wisdom, it's time for us to move beyond silos and into an integrated way of being. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a more beautiful future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community, or the pressures we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to listen, to ask ourselves the big questions, and to share what we are already doing and envisioning, we create the futures of our wildest dreams. And we begin to embody all that we are becoming, and all that is possible.
Christina, it is an absolute delight to welcome you to All That We Are. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me and for everything that you do.
I would love for you to share with us, what are the futures of your wildest dreams?
They're not even wild, they're realistic. It's unity and compassion and love prevailing over all truth, and people coming together throughout not only our country, where I live, my country, the United States, our country, but throughout the world. And recognizing that there's just so much good, more than not, and people seeing that in conversations and connecting in a heartfelt center. That's what I see, and there's definitely nothing wild about it. I see it coming inevitably.
Beautiful. I love your confidence and that real ability to feel that this is coming and that this is possible, despite all of the things that we have experienced and that we do experience, where we meet a different side of that. What gives you that confidence?
I believe there's good in all of us deep down within. And history is on our side. We go in waves of chaos. It's been, in my opinion, intentionally implemented by a flawed system, not only throughout our government in the United States, throughout the world. And history, again, is on our side, where it's time for us to unite and for truth to rise and love and compassion. And when it does, we don't need to go through this same vicious cycle over and over again, because we have technology which will be on our side to prevent this chaos from happening and feeding into a flawed system. So I definitely see that love is greater than fear and will prevail over anything less than love. And back to compassion. People, there's a feeling when you have a feeling of compassion to give to others. And I feel that cultural change and shift on the horizon in the coming future and years and decades to come, that is.
And what part does the political system play in that? Because so many people that have that vision that you're holding find themselves going to create it completely away from the current system. And what I find so interesting about your work is that you are right in there transforming the systems of power.
Definitely what I see, and I'm always open to conversation and adjusting and evolving and growing and learning more, but is a very strong need now, pivotal time in our history, for something to build that is much bigger outside of the current flawed government system throughout the United States, starting there first. A truly independent idea, the common denominator being across the board accountability, and ideas that come from a place of heart. And through discussions, we figure out which are the best, which are okay, which just really don't work for humanity. And I see an idea of 2-3% of the population, historically speaking, that's all it takes to create a real movement. When I say that's all, it's a significant amount, but really it's 2-3% of it. Depends how your perspective of looking at it. But to come together and build something larger outside of the current system, to build that energy to where that system, we just come in and peacefully take it over, and we replace the people specifically in office that aren't serving us and serving big money interests instead, with accountable individuals for all levels of office, targeting Congress first in 2026.
So can you tell us a bit more about Free and Equal and your journey into creating it and what you feel is possible through the systems and the campaigns that you're creating?
Free and Equal Elections was sparked from, I worked a decade around the corrupt Chicago Board of Elections. The Rahm Emanuel faction, Michael Madigan, House Majority Member at that time. I think he's recently resigned, the home of Obamaville, Obama coming out of. And one day I was sitting down with the election law attorney. I had helped at that time get maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of signatures to get candidates on the ballot, independent Democrats, Republicans, third parties, independent candidates. For the most part, a very successful record, 70-80% getting them on the ballot in a very challenging area of Chicago. It's about as corrupt as it gets. Don't want to have to compare to DC and New York. I don't really want any of them to win. I opened the Constitution, Illinois Constitution, with the election law attorney I was working at the time with, Andrew Spiegel. And I saw Article 1, Section 3, all elections shall be free and equal. And I thought to myself, if there's ever a day I start a nonprofit, not knowing that I would, this is early 2000s, it'll be called Free and Equal Elections. So during that time period, my father had ran for governor in 1998. This was before I started gathering signatures for about a decade in Chicago. And he ran as third-party candidate, and he was wrongfully knocked off the ballot. The hearing officer recommended that he be placed on the ballot. The State Board of Elections still wrongfully knocked my dad off the ballot. He had gathered over 60,000 signatures for registered voters in Illinois. It takes 25,000 signatures for a third party at that time in 98 to get on the ballot, while only 5,000 for Democrats and Republicans, 5 times more. And so when he was knocked off the ballot, Dad sued the State Board of Elections directly out of pocket because he didn't want the taxpayers to suffer the penalties. And it was taken by the Illinois Supreme Court, but unfortunately my father lost a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, at least $1 million lawsuit. And I was called the silver lining of 98 by election law expert Richard Winger, who's testified in over 350 cases to better our election laws for the last 40, 50 years of ballot access news. And I appreciate being called the silver lining 98 because at that time, I was just getting in politics and it made me angry and mad. A lot of like what we see with new people getting in politics right now with our more recent president, Donald Trump, getting elected, is just anger, but they don't have as much maybe knowledge about the overall system. That's how I felt when I was 17, and that's how I connect with the people today that are getting engaged, which is great, into the political process. So after that, seeing Dad get off the ballot briefly, I was hired and brought on board, volunteered. I collected over 5,000 signatures for my dad 4 years later and helped him get on the ballot as lieutenant governor, became his ballot access coordinator. Successful. 2 years later, independent Ralph Nader personally called me and asked me if I could help him get on the ballot in Illinois. I helped him, took on that job. 4 years later, I was a national ballot access coordinator for Ralph Nader, spearheading, overseeing over 500,000 signatures to get an independent for president on the ballot, might I add, 4 years prior. He was successfully knocked off the ballot by 32 states by the Democratic Party. So overcoming these Herculean tasks and obstacles is what I do, and that sparked the creation of Free and Equal Elections when we hosted the first nationally televised presidential debates outside of the mainstream Commission on Presidential Debates, because Ralph Nader organized and opened the presidential debates rally. Tom Morello was there playing "This Land Is Your Land." Jesse the Body Ventura saying, "I got elected because I got into the debates" in Minnesota, and many more speakers there, Sean Penn. And that was the spark, the creation of Free and Equal Elections, and how it came about in 2008.
And what is it that is the overall mission of Free and Equal Elections?
Well, it started off through the debates in 2008 as a nonprofit 501c3 to broaden our electoral choices and bring about collaborative action, discussion. And in 2012, Larry King came in and co-moderated with myself our presidential debate. And the idea became bigger beyond presidential debates. The goal became clear to me that there would need to be an independent movement one day, because I could see what the system was doing, especially when 9/11 happened. And the first thing that came about, one of the first, was the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act. For me, that was scary to see our government respond in such an aggressive way, and has been a very difficult thing to come to terms with that. And at the same time, recognizing in a positive way, we're going to need an independent movement one day to break through this. So the organization is here to really unite not only candidates to our debates, but we also sparked the creation of a festival in 2014 called United We Stand Fest. And it was actually at that time Dr. Ron Paul. He inspired me. Ralph Nader's inspired me. Jesse Ventura, Anderson, even Ross Perot, Dennis Kucinich, as a former congressman of Ohio. Dr. Paul said, if we're ever going to bring about, that is, revolutionary changes, he said 2 things would need to be involved. I like to say evolutionary changes. He said those 2 things would need to be, Amisha, he said it would need to be the youth and music. And it was clear to me the calling had to be larger than just the presidential debates, which was already a huge task to hold. So we ignited and started the first annual United We Stand in 2014. We've been holding it ever since. So that'll be this coming in the future will be our 9th annual, as well as holding presidential debates since 2008, 12, 16. In 2020, we held 3 live debates during a lockdown year. Our first debate was the first time we ever did one before the primary. I had 18, that is, candidates confirmed from 11 different political parties. So this idea is bigger than any one person, any individual, with what we're doing with Free and Equal Elections.
And absolutely that it's bigger than 2 parties. In the United States, in the UK, often you get, in many countries, it comes down to these 2 parties, and often the electorate and the people that want to get into politics don't feel they fit within those particular molds and stories that have a lot of history and with them a lot of limitations. And so it feels like this independent movement is so important at this time.
It is. You were telling me the other day about some efforts, which is very impressive of efforts you've done to support proportional representation in your country. And I've almost goosebumps right now because I find it very rare to hear that from another person, let alone another empowered female in this arena, which is there's few of us, but there's more rising for sure. It's women's time, but eventually we'll all come together, all genders, all races. It's about the heart, the common denominator, the compassion, the love, the loyalty, the integrity. It's going to unite us. But yes, a platform is needed to support accountable individuals like yourself to overcome the odds. And candidates that are running for president, whether you're Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Marianne Williamson, maybe Tulsi Gabbard to put her hat back in the ring and so on. And really all voices, all choices. Our slogan is more voices, more choices. We're all inclusive. We even invite the mainstream Democrat and Republican. We always have to our debates since 2008. Will they come? They're less likely for sure, but you never know. That's just how open we are with our presidential debates, which are really conversations. So having that platform, truly an independent platform that gives candidates a free and equal chance of winning, like Article 1, Section 3 of the Illinois Constitution, all elections shall be free and equal. The need for this platform is greater than ever. And we can see that with a bit of the writing on the wall of what maybe the Democratic Party is doing and saying, oh, we're not going to hold any debates. Well, we're going to hold a presidential debate. And so we look forward to working with the candidates and many more that I've mentioned to build this idea that's, again, I keep repeating it because it's bigger than any one person. It is for for humanity.
And as we have people listening from all over the world, can you explain what is the significance and the importance of presidential debates?
Sure. Presidential debates, they're important, but not as important as we're led to believe by mainstream media. I've spoken to quite a few experts. The most important races amongst many is Congress in 2026. Because let's say there's a candidate, whether you support them or not, we've already seen it with Trump. Maybe he broke a little bit through Congress. Not really. I mean, there was just a complete block. But you got somebody like Marianne or Robert F. Kennedy or Tulsi Gabbard, somehow miraculously, if Trump can do it, anything can happen, right? Break through the primary. Even if and when elected, they're going to get stopped, a stalemate, just blocked by Congress because Congress is a two-party system, which is really one party. They all work from within. And so as we build this momentum in 2024 of our presidential debates, you better believe we're going to be incorporating and already have a blockchain voting app, which is really the true center beating heart of free and equal elections. Because we're doing these debates, we're doing United We Stand. Of course, we have other projects like annual Electoral Reform Symposiums, where we brought experts across from gerrymandering to voting machines to ballot access and many other topics, proportional representation, and so on, together to implement into this blockchain app, but really to have a place where we can list every candidate running for office, starting with presidential in 2024 as quickly as we can. All offices targeting really Congress in 2026. We're talking about a couple hundred seats controlling our country. That's not going to stop me. That is not, yes, it's going to be a lot of work to replace them, but it's really not that much work for the results of what it's going to do to help humanity and put an end to all the needless chaos going on. Russia, Ukraine, we can go back to Palestinians and Yemen and Gaza and so on and so on and so on. It just keeps cycling every 30, 50 years, this military-industrial complex that supports most, if not almost every member of Congress, maybe excluding Thomas Massie being the most outspoken and a few others. So this movement has a much bigger mission beyond 2024, and we're excited to really build up that momentum for the years and decades to come, and then eventually put on a decentralized platform so it can carry beyond many years or centuries, is my hope, or so on, beyond my time here on Earth, this moment that I have.
And part of the power of the debates and also the festival and having candidates come and speak and share their vision is that fresher visions, a different way of understanding what's possible, gets shared and seeded into all of our minds as citizens so that we can imagine different possibilities than perhaps mainstream media and the status quo have us believe.
Yes, it is no coincidence that Tulsi Gabbard, and I need to know the name of the act, I've been meaning to refresh my mind, but just how our government is attempting to silence, once again, censor, delete, have the ability to delete TikTok and other social media platforms. This is not a surprise to me. This is when the 9/11 came about, and again, the NDA and Patriot Act came about. I'm like, oh, well, one day they're going to be able to censor and delete and remove us from social media. And then we look at Elon Musk and Twitter files and how Matt Taibbi, my goodness, I mean, just a beautiful journalist, independent, used to be with Rolling Stones. I've had lunch with him in New York, told him about United We Stand. He said, when the day comes, I'll support that. And the day is coming soon. And to see wrongfully the system go after and threaten him to jail for releasing Twitter files, shame on the people. I mean, Julian Assange and Snowden, good on, I hope more presidential candidates come out and say that when they're elected, these individuals will be pardoned because our government just shouldn't be doing the sort of wrong things that they are doing and really be hiding. It's just a really, they are intentionally censoring us. And historically speaking, you'll never really see an honest or accountable person, or for that example, for the most part, the ones that are censored are the honest and accountable individuals. So we're seeing a lot of that coming about right now to suppress us, to scare us. Journalists being scared. I mean, Amber Lyon, I've known her back in 15 years ago, a whistleblower with sex trafficking, CNN. She was fired, let go, and intimidated and didn't get back into journalism. Her close friend being Michael Hastings, who unfortunately passed away because his car drove into a tree and he was going up against the CIA at that time. Like some pretty heavy, scary stuff our system is doing to scare off the truth seekers. And when we unite together and at a level of that 2-3%, that idea, once it comes, it won't get in the way. And censorship is the most powerful tool we have as people to bring about integrity, not only within our elections, but technology and so on, which are going to be the AI and all those things. We have to have good money behind not only the people in office, but that's the next space warfare. No, not going to tolerate that. No go there. But first things first, we got to replace most members of Congress with accountable individuals that are going to support freedom of speech.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we take a lot of the freedom that we have for granted, and we're really seeing with social media the limitations that are there around who has a right to speak. And many people over the last few years have found their posts censored or posts mysteriously deleted or warnings put on their posts if they're saying something that is deemed to be controversial by the creators of those platforms, and therefore limiting the conversations that are possible.
Yes, I mean, under the Patriot Act and National Defense Authorization Act, the reason why in detail I could see the censorship of internet coming about is that under those acts, that means they had the right, or ability to detain, jail you, handcuff you from your home without even by trial or jury. And when I dug deeper and saw that they labeled, you won't hear me say in everyday conversations the word conspiracy theorists, because I don't feed into, that's like using the word hippies, for people for Woodstock to take their power away. Conspiracy theorists, these are people who have ideas you may or may not agree with, but welcome ideas. And when I read into the Patriot Act NDA that a conspiracy theorist is defined as a terrorist, I was like, oh wow. So full-on censorship, to want to delete social, to control, it's just happening. And then now we're going into the one world digital currency. None of that. I mean, if you dive in deeper, the Rockefeller, Rothschilds, I mean, they talked about this decades ago that they were going to do this. And I work closely with a monetary expert, G. Edward Griffin, the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, who's very supportive, was actually the ghostwriter for Dr. Ron Paul for In the Fed. And so it just really is very clear to me what the system's doing. It doesn't come as a surprise. Writing's on the wall. And we got to replace, I mean, truly, what Roger Waters says, all these bricks in the wall, the people in office are not serving we the people.
In England, we just had the coronation of the king. And in the morning, all of the people that were protesting the monarchy, that were saying, "Not my king," on their placards, all got arrested. And so we're also finding that there's a kind of closing in on people's rights to share different opinions, or to say that different things are important than what's being offered. And so it feels like a really, really important time for us to support each other in protecting our rights of freedom of speech, of freedom of expression, of protest, of being able to bring different issues into the mainstream agenda than what might already be there.
Yeah, on our stage, our debates, United We Stand, you can be pro or, not for. All we ask, and it's a big ask, is nonviolent action. It's that important. It's big because peace is where we come from. And I was fortunate to, many years ago now, meet a woman, doesn't say on her Wikipedia page, but people know she was 109 years of age, Mother Amelia Boynton Robinson of Selma, voting rights matriarch. And I was able to be one of, if not the last person to interview her. I knew what I had in front of me. A reporter once asked me, a journalist asked, have you ever met a hero in your life? And I paused. I said, I've met a heroine named Mother Amelia Boynton Robinson of Selma. And I bring this up because this is a prime example of a woman who worked in her community for 30 years, her and her husband, to build this energy within Selma. And there came a time in history where it's not commonly known, but if you look at the 50-year anniversary of the March Against Montgomery, you'll see Obama and Michelle with Amelia in the middle in the wheelchair, Amelia Boynton Robinson. She sparked the March of Montgomery. She was there when the first protest happened, gathering really peacefully of the people walking across the bridge that eventually inevitably evolved into the Bloody Sunday. That goes to show the importance of people uniting and having an energy that creates it, that is deeply rooted, like Amelia, that wasn't taken over. It built and it sparked, of course, Bloody Monday, which resulted into the drafting and the creation of the voting rights, I think, of 65, whom I've also met before he passed, former Attorney General Ramsey Clark. And he served under JFK, John F. Kennedy. He was there when the assassination happened, and also Lyndon B. Johnson when we unfortunately lost JFK. And so to learn from these individuals and experts that sparked, created, drafted, and they were friends, Amelia and Ramsey, the importance of gathering, I don't have words for it. So to see what they're doing, it's intentional because they don't want an idea or movement to come together. But with United We Stand, every stop of the tour series, which United We Stand will be presenting our presidential debates during election years and then branching off onto its own on non-election years throughout the United States and so on. The US first, because the whole world's watching us. And once we rise, they will follow. The importance of being able to gather is there's no words. It has to happen. It will happen peacefully. And every stop will lead from a place of prayer, like it did at Standing Rock. And with the people, Indigenous and all, we the people came together to take a stand against the North Dakota, the Dakota that is Access Pipeline. This was truly monumental. And so we work with a lot of leaders and founders in the Indigenous community within our tour, our vision as well, which is very vastly important.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier the blockchain and AI and how you are developing a way of using these technologies for accountability. Can you share a bit more around that?
Definitely. Blockchain is going to transform our elections and bring about political transparency once and for all. And it's going to be through education. I mean, imagine a blockchain app, the first component of how we're going to integrate it at the next level into our presidential debates. United We Stand presenting our presidential debates like a tour series. Our first stop will be this fall of 2022 and 2023, that is. I misspoke. I think a year just went by like that. I think we're all in that kind of little mode. I still do it. I get my months and years kind of mixed up. It's just one of my little things. But the blockchain app, we work with coders, developers, specifically Nexus Earth, Colin Cantrell. Love him. I met him at Aspen Institute. His dad, Jim Cantrell, was the co-founder of SpaceX with Elon Musk. So his son, Colin, is just a genius in coding, developing, and has taught me a lot about the world there. And so he is one of our developers, and it will build out more into a project beyond the ones I've mentioned before, where we will be implementing it into our first round of debates to allow the people to decide who's going to be in the first presidential debate, which will be before the primary. and then they will vote. And our goal is to go with the proper proceeds and funding. Of course, singular vote is the easiest to implement to the app. We want to implement ranked choice voting and maybe work with entities like Fair Vote and many others. Approval voting, star voting, score voting. There's many different voting methods. The current one we have is the worst we could possibly have. And that's what helps, one of many reasons, to keep the two-party system getting reelected over and over again. So the blockchain app will be used for voting throughout our debates. And then even the bigger vision, as we pull that energy into it, listing every single candidate running for office, Democrat, Republican, alternative/third parties, independent candidates. And with the Gallup polls have come out and said that there are more independent voters than there are Democrats and Republicans combined. The need for an independent movement is greater than ever. And I meant to elaborate on the AI component. I had a really beautiful conversation for a couple of hours with an individual that created Google Translate. And he told me how they could implement how just changing a few words around with AI can really change how you search and search engines. So when you have good money and good intent behind AI, it's here. It's not going anywhere. It can do and will do great things for humanity, because we're not going to let the latter things happen for sure. But also imagine the AI where we have every candidate listed beyond Congress, federal, state, local, presidential, of course. And the moment that they don't abide by what they have promised the people that they were elected to do, AI will target them. We'll know it. We'll vote them out. Like, these are the components of what we'll be implementing into the app, as well as clicking here to learn how to get on the ballot. Click here to, learn how to help collect signatures for this candidate. Click here to run for office. So it's going to be an all-purpose tool to bring about transparency within our elections.
So AI will be able to, in a kind of more sophisticated way and a less labor-intensive way than human time, be able to identify when somebody has voted out of integrity from what they promised.
That's exactly what the creator of Google Translate told me could be done within our blockchain elections as an app. So that's a great source, and that is very great to hear.
You spoke about how AI is a resource that can really, really help us. And of course, there's a huge amount of fear that it might go another way. And we're already seeing some of that beginning to pop up in social media and posts being written by AI and, everything just getting a little bit less human and a little bit less tangible. How do you feel that we are going to be able to use this tool for unity and peace?
You're not talking to an expert on it, but I just gave you one reason. I have to say I've had my feelings as well. In 2020 at the final debate, the individuals who created, is her name Sophia, the AI robot? Sophie, I think's her name, that really well at the time. But they asked if I would be comfortable having her in the future sit next to me at a presidential debate to generate questions. I'm like, no, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not sure I will be there. So it's just a matter of, once we get the right people in office, replacing Congress with, a lot of these individuals are going to have technological backgrounds. I mean, I've met with Amelia Powers Gardner out in Utah. She's the commissioner there. And during the lockdown, she implemented a blockchain, a way to actually get married through the blockchain ledger virtually. You know how much revenue she brought into? I mean, I don't even know the numbers. It was huge for Utah. It was able to marry people during a time. And that was just a prime example of how, that's in the blockchain, but not maybe AI that I think about. But I just don't, admittingly, kind of like how Joe Rogan is on the show. I just don't know as much in AI as I do yet, but I will in the future. But once we have good, accountable candidates like Amelia Powers Gardner, that's where I was going with that, is that when we get people into office that have a lot of experience with AI, I'm not one of them. I ran for statewide office in 2010 in California for Secretary of State, a neutral office. But my goal now here is to empower and inspire more people like Amelia to run and get elected. But once they get into office, they're going to be able to really, with a lot of technology backgrounds, be able to make sure that we put good intent behind AI. I think it's about the intention. So maybe AI can also say, here's a project in AI where it's not funded by, or it's funded by this entity. Do you trust this entity? Pfizer. If you do, then do you trust them to run AI? Then go support that. I don't. And maybe some others don't. So I see that we have solutions. As a solutionist, we can overcome the challenges of AI. Again, it's not going anywhere. So what can we do to hold AI as accountable as possible within reason? And it really comes down to the intention of the creators and really shining a light on them and making sure that they don't get out of control.
And it also comes down to legislation and
Yes.
how we use our political system to protect society.
100%. It's not that difficult. I mean, we have the powers that be that frankly are, a lot of them are passing away. It's the nicest way, but there's this new generation of, not to say they're all different, but the kids or grandkids that are up and coming that deep down, some of them, hopefully most of them, want to have a positive, a paradigm shift where we're not suddenly or still living in the intentional dark ages, because that's what the government wants. They want to suppress population. They want to keep us in the dark ages because that's how they can control us. And so when we see beyond that and see the new paradigm building, and they see that independent movements here, they're going to latch on it to so quickly, and there's just going to be no stopping it. So love will win.
That's all we really want, is healthy food, good, clean water, places to live that are not toxic, abilities to support each other and do what we came here to do, like live beautiful lives.
Yes, I mean, clean air, clean water, it's okay. I mean, if we want to get into the system intentionally focuses on divisive issues of global warming, and it's like, well, once we put good into technology and we rid of the carbons, the toxins that frankly are killing people directly with cancer and who knows how many other diseases, once we've resolved that, the root of the issue, Mother Earth is going to reap the benefits. So we've got to get to the root of it, which is the legislation. Thank you. The people in office that are appointing the judicial system, into their seats, that are all beholden. When I see somebody behind a judge, behind a desk, I see handcuffs on them. I see it same with Democrats and Republicans, and I don't have an anger towards them. I have a sadness. What an empty place to be. I don't choose to put anger towards that because that's not going to serve humanity. I choose to focus on the problem, and words from like a lot of artists of Pete Seeger. I go back every now and then to listen to We Shall Overcome, We Are Not Afraid. I listen to John Lennon and watching the wheels go round and round and round and round. And he's right in that song, there are no problems, only solutions. And when we have that cultural change shift in mindset, it almost brings a little bit of tears to my eyes, because these men have just, in their words, have paved and have prepared us for what's coming. And they are tremendously missed as well. George Carlin and the work that he's done, and even Larry King and Ed Asner. I might add, Ed was our presidential moderator, 2016. I knew Larry, but I was close to Ed of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I really have so much love for him, and we lost him the same year as Larry, and even my father too. So that was a tough year for everyone, right? 2020, is it one? I get my years mixed up, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's 2021. So still though, it's just, I go back to love will win. We shall overcome. There are no problems, only solutions. These men have message and so many more songs and so many more music. Turn, turn, turn. This time of the season has come. Pete Seeger couldn't have said it more. And here I am in Bali right now, and got to see a week or two ago Michael Franti, who is also of many different artists that support United We Stand, Chuck D, A Public Enemy, Immortal Technique, Flowbots. We've had Marianne Williamson on our stage. I mean, the list goes on and on. But in Franti's, I saw him in a video where he was at Pete Seeger's, one of his probably, I think, final birthday in his 90, 95, Pete Seeger. But to see Franti there and to be so aware, these are the sort of artists that we gravitate and really will be attracting beyond that. But for really the spark and kickoff of the United We Stand tour at the next level, which seems to be very much on the horizon.
How have you witnessed the power of music and youth coming together to catalyze these cultural shifts?
Music is the healer. Natalie Rise, from her song Blue King Brown, I saw her open at Cali Roots before Steel Pulse, and it is truly the healer. The frequency and the hertz, and it's fun. Like, I'm not into political parties. I am an independent. I don't think political parties work, but if you are with one or you need to use one to get elected, or I do feel that independent candidates are the future. And so I always like to say, we're going to have a party doing this. So I was like, if I'm going to do debates, I'm actually a pretty apolitical. I'm around politics, but somebody's got to do it. Election reform is not like the most exciting. Ooh, I really want to get it, but somebody's got to do it to bring about the flaws, but really more so the solutions of how to reform this. But I definitely brought in United We Stand in Music in 14 because I knew we had to have a platform that would bring celebrities and artists and thought leaders and organizations together beyond the presidential debates. And the music is key. Beyond Woodstock, Woodstock had a great concept beyond, but imagine a foundation, a deeply rooted organization. I've been in the electoral arena for a quarter of a century now, and 41, right there. It's crazy to say. I started that young, 17. So right there, I guess maybe 24 years. I don't want to stretch it. And so it's so deeply rooted to where we've had so many beautiful ideas come about in the United States and also throughout the world. One huge thing they were missing was that deeply rooted foundation. So over time, they inevitably became co-opted. And the way we're structuring free and equal through the blockchain ledger and decentralization, and myself as the founder, was very substantial and grounded and very deeply rooted. There's a long-term mission, and we will go towards it day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute.
Beautiful. I'm so inspired by your vision and the possibility that you're embodying.
Thanks. I came to Bali because of Lucien. How do I say his last name? Tarnowski, is that right? Offhand, and meeting him and his soon-to-be wife, Tatiana, at Burning Man last year. And so I was really called to, or was already happened to be in Bali because this is a very sacred place I've been traveling to since 2005. But also for United Planet. So I've met a lot of beautiful people like yourself there, and I'm grateful to Lucien. And that's what free and equal elections is that we connect. I connect with so many different bubbles beyond the political realm, into the technology, into Hollywood, into music, into United Planet, because United Nations, the word nations is divisive in itself. That has lines, barriers. So I love that I came here. I'm glad I met you through United Planet, and I thank you for your integrity and really diving deeper into interviews and really getting to know people. It's not the same old interview. I knew that when I met you, it was going to be a beautiful, different thing. And being around you and the integrity and your directness and your ability to really speak from a place of heart not only shows from you, Amisha, on a personal level, but on a professional level as well. So thank you for the work that you do. Being around individuals like yourself keep me going.
Thank you. I mean, I really felt with United Planet, with that experience of the Up Games, that getting to be in close proximity to so many people that not only believe something else is possible, but are actively creating it. And then the power that comes together when we all lift each other up. And, you are also a great weaver, and that's kind of what I see as part of my role is bringing together different people, bringing together silos so that we can actually understand ourselves as humans in a much more holistic and complete way. Because there has been a tendency in the past to be in kind of, you're in politics or you're in sustainability or you're in music. And actually, it's when all these things come together, when we understand all the interrelations between everything, that we're able to create a paradigm that we want to be part of.
I definitely saw a lot of activators at United Planet, and I see a potential with that entity and many other individuals of collaboration to integrate into the vision of, okay, we have people doing great things, but now coming together to really make the change, to have a long-term goal and mission that is going to really bring about results like we've never, just results that are going to frankly give everybody, when I said earlier in this interview that there's good, there's just that good deep down. And when people are feeling the cant word change and this and that, the moment they see hope on the horizon, oh, they're all going to come on board. Like deep down, no matter how cynical or not involved or not voting, it does not matter, because the moment you see that hope and you see that your vote counts, and or, oh my gosh, there's a candidate I really love and my vote is actually going to count, and or when we have a whole bunch of count people elected, maybe government will according to the Constitution, be cut back if the people want it. I'm not attached. If they want it to be cut back 70, 80%, that's how we get back to the origins of the Constitution. So I see the socialist end, I see the anarchist end, and so on, everything in between coming together for a much bigger vision for humanity. So yes, it's coming to events like United Planet and many others, even Burning Man, to see 70,000 people. I went there, was sponsored, flown in and spoke with Indigenous elders and individuals to support independent ideas for that matter. But just going into these bubbles and seeing in Burning Man 70,000 people giving and receiving and exchanging and no monetary, and the hope there. I mean, the police that were like coming by and driving by saying, we love being here. This is so much fun. And like nobody had the fear. It's just not, it's such a powerful tool the system uses to implement this fear that just, it's there, but it's just overly hypersensitized by the media and the tools that they use to make it's there, to make it not only bigger than what it is, but to make it more problematic, to feed and to make more problems happen. And it's just another vicious cycle we're going through every 30 to 50 years. And once we fix this, I'm going to vote and vote not to go through that cycle again. And I see that hope, back full circle of people getting engaged, running for office, helping people. And even if it's not directly political, even though politics is everything we do, arts and everything we do, giving back in your community, whether it's cleaning up the water, showing up, being there for your elders, whatever you're called to, whatever you can do, that's the shift that is coming in the future. The year of abundance in 2024, Kogi and Mamos of message, that's pretty soon. Okay, cool. I'm all great. Like, let's come together. All the messengers 2026, you were mentioning to me, the grandmothers. I don't know if you could tell me a little bit about their vision.
Jotima, who brought together the Council of the Indigenous Grandmothers, the 13 Indigenous grandmothers, she always says the ending's falling into the beginning, and 2026 as a marker point of that transition. And with that, a sense of, as something is ending, it tends to hold on tighter. And so a lot of what many of us have been experiencing is that holding on tighter. And so I feel like there's this real importance of how we resource ourselves and each other in this time so that we don't lose hope, so that we don't fall to the wayside. I felt it myself, like over the past couple of years, of moments where it's just felt so strong, the collective fear and the collective control, and then having to really, really anchor in to that which I know is possible and that which I know is coming, and to therefore be a holder of that vision, a protector of that vision.
Oh, thank you for those words. I don't know if your listeners heard that. You might want to rewind that and listen to that again. So, because that was so beautiful, and I will for sure. And the hope, we have been psychologically indoctrinated by a system. Obama, for example, using the words hope and change, that was no accident. The moment I followed the money, sure, he had this really nice demeanor and presence and all, but it comes down to following the money. And of course, I was in the Chicago, or I've mentioned before, Board of Elections around that for 10 years. And I already saw that it was very likely Obama was slated to run for president 8 years prior, because when he ran for Senate, every single competitor that ran against him was knocked off the ballot. I had never seen anything like this, like really organized, dialed in petition drives. All of them were knocked off because, again, the judicial system was appointed by the two-party system, and Obama was going to run for president. So, yeah, they fooled us there. I like the who, fool us, don't fool us again kind of. Well, I know it's been fooled over and over again, but the who, you are so welcome, whether it's Roger Waters, Will.i.am of Black Eyed Peas. I mean, we cannot be fooled again. And technology, again, is that game changer that will enable us not to fall into the same vicious cycle over and over again. I'm done with it. I'm all for hope and change, and love will win. And I welcome many, many others to join, because that is just the only way that I see things. And music, again, it definitely is the healer, and is what is going to unite us overnight in a way that we've never seen before.
Thank you for tuning in. If you are enjoying this episode, do join our membership. For a small contribution, you can be part of our community, where we deepen the conversation and offer spaces of learning and embodiment. As a member, you are a patron supporting the making of this show, keeping the episodes full length, free and accessible for all. And you receive a number of benefits, such as monthly soul space, going deeper sessions, access to our library of workshops, and discounts on all our online and in-person experiences. Our membership is what makes us able to make this show and stay advertising free in a world that is always trying to sell us stuff we don't need. Head to allthatweare.org/membership to find out more and join today.
For many people as well, over the past years, our worlds got smaller and perhaps less in-person interactions, more online, more social media. And I feel like there's a real invitation at this point to really reactivate senses of community, and whether that be very much in one's locality and the ways of mutual aid and support and cleaning up rivers together and all of those kind of local things that can happen. And also connecting globally and using our technology like in a very mindful, careful way in order to connect deeper to communities of hope and change and to keep ourselves really strong.
Community is key. Gentleman I mentioned earlier, Mr. Ed Asner, he showed up at a Mary Tyler Moore show. He had the #1 nationally syndicated show called Lou Grant. It was in the 70s, 60s, pardon me, but it's back before I was born. And the moment he spoke up for the people, for election in other countries, said, let the people decide. He got wrongfully blacklisted and labeled as a communist, which he, talking to him directly, he's like, I just believe in the people supporting what they want. And the system did not like that at all. And when Ed Asner showed up at our, I think, 2015 second annual United We Stand, truth seeker, truly. He came to Cambria, a town I've lived in for 10 years, Central Coast, California. He called it charming Cambria, and he decided and wanted to moderate a candidates forum with me on a local level. Because at that time we had 5 really, I would say, in my opinion, strongly, just not accountable people in office on the water board called the Cambria Community Service District. And so this forum resulted, I feel strongly, in helping an accountable individual, beat out the incumbent by 35 votes, because Cambria is it's pretty, people that live there are older. The average age is 70 plus. It's retirement, but at the same time, a very tourist town community of 6,000. So they were intrigued that Ed Asner was in Cambria. So, I mean, hundreds of people showed up, and the buzz, and he made a change. And I bring this up because during the forum, he looked at me and he said, real change begins from the bottom up. And he no longer with us anymore, but he has started the Ed Asner Family Foundation for Alzheimer's. And there is a day that it will be strongly implemented into our tour, because Ed gave his heart and soul and compassion and love, and could see what was on the horizon for this vision like no other, as well as others rising as so on. But 5 years ago or so, I started a social media page called Cambria Currents, because I tried speaking at local board meetings and they shut me down, they shut me out. And I have a very logical approach of just trying to change the time of the board meeting from the middle of the day till the early evening so people could show up who were working. It took me a year and a half, and I couldn't have any really success. I started Cambria Currents, which now is the most active social media page for the town. We've had over 130,000 views in the last 2 months. That's astronomical for a town of 6,000, almost 6,000 people opt in on the page. So we organize local monthly, semi-monthly potlucks, and we really activated strongly this year. And the community is carrying it while I'm even here, thanks to Kat and others in town, and so on, and Jade, and they're carrying that potluck, and we'll be implementing town hall meetings into it when there are local issues. So I bring this up because I have no desire to ever run for office. My role is to help get people elected on all levels. And I knew when Ed said that, I said, okay, If I'm going to make change on a national level, I have to, and I already was. I've got to, change begins from the bottom up, really get involved in my local community and figure out a way to break through the lack of integrity within the CCSD, Cambria Community Service District, and Cambria Occurrences. Not only doing that, just really bringing together people to talk and discuss, and music and events and town hall meetings or fundraisers for beautiful causes, whatever each host wants to implement into each idea, just really getting involved in your community. So these are ways that you can help your community. I'm just sharing one example, but you can be that person. That we have a group in our town called Beautify Cambria, whether it's picking up the garbage or making it beautiful in your town, like just really get connected to your community. Because Amisha, you brought up a valid point. That's where the real change begins, from the bottom up.
And it's also where our strengthening of soul really kicks in as well. As you said, being around people that believe that things can be different and that want things to be different, and also are using their hands, like head, heart, and hands to actually make change. And I feel like that is one of the most resourceful ways of staying in that place of strength and hope.
It is. The movement we need is on our shoulders. Do you know what line that's from?
No.
Hey Jude.
Ah.
Beatles, right? And you dig into that, you'll see that John Lennon really fought to keep that line in that song. And how do I know this? My civil rights some mentor of mine who connected me to Amelia and Ramsey Clark, he said, Christina, what does that line mean, do you think? And I was like, the movement you need is on your shoulders. And he told me, mentored, it means your mind. Your mind. So think of that. The movement you need is on your shoulders. I've never listened to the song the same way. And whenever I hear it, I just yearn to hear that one line in that song, because it's so, so powerful. And our mind. So everything you're mentioning, activity, hands and all derives from our mind choosing to utilize these tools and getting involved and creating that own movement from within of how we're going to move to make that movement within our community and our world.
Beautiful. From the now 8 years of United We Stand, what have you seen that has either really impacted you of what you've experienced on stage, or what's catalyzed from it? Like what is the real power of these festivals and coming together?
The first annual was geared up to be quite huge. In 2014, we were slated to UCLA, 10,000. Public Enemy headliner. So this gives you an idea of the kind of people we had. Confirm Marianne Williamson to Dr. Ron Paul, Larry King waiving his $50,000 speaker's fee for the cause, founding members of Wu-Tang Clan, to David Bronner of Dr. Bronner's, to Ben and Jerry of Ben and Jerry's. And so working with groups like World Centric, we also work with Headcount, Rock the Vote, who Headcount and represent us. They have Jennifer Lawrence of Hunger Games that are their representative. And so imagine, I bring up all these different names, imagine all of these artists and thought leaders. And the reason, by the way, that that event did not spark like it did, because the university system has been intentionally hostile towards our efforts, and that's been in multiple states. They don't want a real idea from within. The university system has a lot of room for improvement. They wrongfully, and an arbitrator, we won a lawsuit recently, UCLA wrongfully breached a contract and canceled our event 5 days out because they didn't want Public Enemy there and Chuck D. And I have all the documentations in the email from administrators. Unfortunately, the show still went on. And I bring that up because I don't give up. Giving up is not an option. I booked an alternative venue with a beautiful team around me the day of the event, and thousands still showed up at a smaller venue of 2,000. Immortal Technique actually really was a catalyst of, we're going to do this out in the park. We're not letting the system shut this down. It would have happened no matter with Immortal. Thank you, Felipe. He's recently reached out to about performing this fall, and he is an anchor for sure. And so it goes to show, when you have an idea that's so pure, it's going and it has to overcome. And I was definitely made for this role because my father, Jim Tobin, whom I unfortunately lost a little over a year and a half ago, he was also very tenacious in his work and standing for the people and running one of the largest tax fighting organizations in Illinois and working throughout the United States for 45 years. So I got a lot of tenacity from my father. And so the purity of this vision, where I've turned down huge money over and over again because it's not for sale, And it's for the people. And we've been tried to be shut down and canceled. Even our 2008 presidential debate initially was canceled. Maybe I'll put this in an article in detail one day of the hurdles. We were national, and then it got canceled, and then it happened a week later, and it was still nationally televised, barely by C-SPAN too. But I mean, so United We Stand is really, I don't know how to answer your question directly, Amisha. It's the artists and thought leaders and the people coming together. This is why we're doing it, because I foresee a lot of these individuals, organizations that I just mentioned to you, supporting these candidates for office. I see them plugging in as sponsors and or donating their time for the candidate. If they're inspired, Marianne Williamson had Jason Mraz perform at her 2010, run for Congress as an independent. If any of these artists or any of these thought leaders are like, dang, I really like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard if she runs again, or whoever may run with the Libertarian Party, get nominated, and or the People's Party, Greens Party, Constitution Party, and so on. Last presidential election, I think we had over 300 candidates, but their hat in the ring to run for president alone doesn't mean most of them didn't have ballot access, and some did. That just goes to show like the bigger vision of United We Stand is to plug the support into the app so they can support these candidates to help them get elected. Imagine it being beyond money. Sure, if you see a candidate where Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps donates $100,000 to them from their philanthropist, this is just an example organization, do you want to vote for that candidate or not? Me, I'll probably want to vote for them because I trust Bronner's and what he does for the world and what he stands in integrity. Like, it's okay to have good money in a campaign, but it's also even better to have individuals put their face and their name and their music and their art, what they stand for, in collaboration with candidates and individuals that they support for office. Does that give you the bigger vision of why we're doing United We Stand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
The power of collaboration.
Thanks.
And the power of aligning in integrity.
I'm glad you pulled that out of me, and I'll be messaging that more. Your interviews bring in a little bit more, and that back to that, our mission is to spark that civic dialogue, discussion, and collaborative action. And that is defining the collaborative action right there in detail, what you just pulled out of me.
Absolutely. And something else that you have mentioned just now about having a venue taken away, and it's not the first time that you've experienced that. As we've been spending time together, I've heard all kinds of different stories around venues being pulled because of a particular speaker or a particular artist, or lawsuits around, trying to squash ideas or squash things. And I find that you're really in this remarkable place where you're both creating a new paradigm and you're literally in legal battles with the old paradigm. And I find that that's really quite extraordinary because not everyone can do both. What you're sharing about the resources that you have of other people that are in integrity around you and how that allows you to be able to do both of those things because there is so much support. I just find that incredibly inspiring and moving.
Thank you. I remember referencing before Michael Franti's song, "When we all see justice, we all see peace." And I have filed 3 lawsuits in my lifetime, which the common denominator is that they were all for justice. The first briefly being against the Democratic state chair of Illinois for wrongfully using full-time state employees to knock independent presidential candidate off the ballot. It went national. I held a protest, I think 8 or 12 weeks in a row in front of his office, and the officers were instructed to I had everything legal, permits and all, but Madigan got so upset he instructed them to arrest me. So I just said, okay, I'm going to stop this. And I went to Bali for 3 years. I mean, I just wanted to get out of that vortex. I mean, who wouldn't? And Bali was the best decision to come to in 2005. And then I filed suit against jewelry designer John Hardy in Bali for wrongfully raiding my manufacturing company, stealing my designs and paying off the Indonesian police to backdate and claim them as his own. This is what he's done to hundreds of other candidates. The first lawsuit I lost, but the second one I ended up settling and using that money. You can take a challenging situation. Not only did I settle and use that money to build free and equal elections, but also overturn the laws in the United States where John Hardy can no longer monopolize the Balinese motif. That was the biggest win, or as big, being able to build free and equal elections. Very double great, cool. And the third and finally, and hopefully finally, is UCLA wrongfully breaching the contract 5 days out, stating I failed to make payment on time, which is on record that our funder, they increased the final payment from 50 to 90K 10 days out when we hadn't changed anything from the show. And I knew that they wanted to cancel us. I was able to raise the money anyway. She was wiring. They called her five times the morning of trying to talk her out of it. So this is all on record in the deposition. And fortunately, I did turn down the big money offer from UCLA because clearing our name was more important. And I got the win where the arbitrator ruled they breached the contract. And I can release those documents one day because I did not sign a confidentiality agreement and take the 6-figure offer from UCLA. I got the win instead in a much smaller settlement, but the money didn't matter. It was clearing the name. And of course, the energy for me to be able to move forward in that cloud over me, because I was wrongfully attacked by UCLA and their newspaper, Daily Bruin, and so on. And so I bring this up because the third time I won, and sure, I got a settlement too, but it's just I've moved upwards. And yes, has it challenging to go up against an old paradigm? Sure. But I was really fortunate in the last 2 lawsuits to have law firms that took the case on pro bono because they believed. They didn't want me to be bullied. Very good people. Steve Oster actually was our attorney against UCLA, and he led that through the blockchain world, through Nexus Earth. I mentioned Colin Cantrell directly through that network. Colin connected me to Stephen, and he took on the case and he prevailed. And he's a comedian. So Stephen Oster, you have a place on United We Stand stage one day for what you did, open-ended, no matter. You're going to be on that stage. Loyalty is important when people help you. Doesn't matter how small or big, and the loyalty. And so it's really been an uphill battle, but I was definitely meant for this.
Something so powerful. There's a lot of talk around purpose in the current world and people finding their purpose and finding what they're meant for. And I wonder for you how you can speak so clearly to knowing that you're in exactly the right place, doing exactly the right thing.
I am. I have earned my cards as being an expert in what I do. I can moderate presidential debates borderline flawlessly. I'm close to prevailing on United We Stand, and it's not on my own. It's the team. I surround myself with like-minded individuals, truly filled with heart and love and compassion. You all know who you are with the Free and Equal Elections team. Some that have stuck with us for a decade or longer, and many new ones coming on board with the recent Rage Against the War Machine Coalition. What they pulled off this past February, thousands of people with Tulsi Gabbard and Dennis Kucinich, Dr. Ron Paul. I was honored to be brought in as a co-organizer and brought into the green room. My role is to hang out with the talent, for once, not speak or organize, but get to really connect with them one-on-one. And so to have that coalition on board and co-host partnership supporting our efforts, and many more individuals, Robert F. Kennedy and Marianne Williamson, have endorsed free and equal elections. We welcome Tulsi Gabbard and many others to endorse, and so on across the spectrum, is a really beautiful, beautiful thing. So I thank you for your kind words. And I feel like we're just getting started with what is yet to come. This has just been the groundwork to get for what's coming, to prepare for what's coming. So yeah, these obstacles have really put me in a place to be ready and to say, I'm an expert, I know what I'm doing, and the people around me do, and that is not something I've always been able to do. And I love, Alan Watts, What If Money Were No Object? Anybody listening to this, a prime example of money really not being an object for what I do. Why would I do something that I don't enjoy over and over again? As he would say in his video, that's just stupid. Kind of cute because it's Alan Watts. And really focusing on what it's you love that you do and sticking with it, even if you have to do something part-time on the side. And I opened a retail shop in Cambria, California 5 years ago called Bali Gems, which is also the national headquarters for these entities, the foundation work and all. But you keep doing what you love doing, and eventually you'll become an expert, and there'll be an exchange and you'll have something for that. So just for anyone out there, keep doing it, because once you hit this moment, you just know. You're like, yep, I'm an expert now. This is what I was called to do. And the happiness to be able to do for those 2 seconds, as Prince EA, motivational speaker, would say, with 2 seconds here on earth, that's really it in the grand scheme of things. Do what you love. I am, and I really hope that for most, if not all, of humanity, and can hopefully inspire that as well, and create a world that enables us to be doing what we love more than ever.
Beautiful. I really feel that power light up in my body. You make it sound so simple, but I know it's a journey. And I love how you share that there's like a moment. Suddenly you're like, oh, okay, I'm here, I'm doing it. And how important it is to keep trying when it's difficult, especially at the beginning of something, and to take our strength from each other and from the bigger movement and the bigger possibility that each one of us, our part is playing into.
Never, never, never give up. And have there been moments? All of us have moments. That's okay. That's just natural to have a moment. Recently, not as much, but there are moments where it's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And should I be doing this? Let those thoughts go and tap into why you're doing it and stay positive, or mix things around, or do 10, 20 jumping jacks, which I tend to do if I need to shift into something right away. But follow your heart, your mind, your heart, your gut, and that will always steer you in the right direction when they're aligned. And that's what has steered me to what I am doing today. And definitely, when my father passed about 15 months ago, some of his final thoughts in the final days was, how could I not be here on earth anymore? We don't have freedom yet. I mean, my father just thinking of these beautiful things. And he's like, we don't have freedom yet. And I looked at him and said, Dad, you don't worry about that. Hand over the baton. I'll make sure. And of course, with many others, freedom is on its way. And he just took a sigh of breath relief, and he knew it was beautiful. The proudness I had and the warrior in those final days. It was weeks later. I'm driving and showing up with a meeting, as I've done with Marianne Williamson and with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I just remember pulling up in his driveway, and I just thought of the vision of the Thunderbird and the eagle. And I said, Dad, here's to freedom. So I really miss him tremendously, but I bring this up because there are people who inspire us sometimes more in our lives than not. And those are just huge anchors and influences. And even if we all have challenges, I definitely had challenges with my father. But as I got older, I realized that was because he worried about me and loved me. That was the only reason he was so hard on me. And I wish I had been told a decade earlier. It would have been a lot smoother, because he was a really, really strong person and what he stood for and so on. So it definitely an utmost inspiration in his final days of caring so much about freedom. And I yearn, and I'm in that space where my father, I know hopefully that day is as far as can be, but it's still so quickly because we're here so shortly. But I will stand here for freedom, for every moment, do the best that I can, not attached to a timeline or a certainty. That's important in the work we do, to not have, I talked about that open planet, for me, to not have a complete attachment, no, to timelines and doing things and all. Just like release. When you release, and you do the best you can and be okay with the best, and just know that whatever you achieve here on earth is going to be enough. You can only do what you can do, and be present and with humanity and the loved ones and the people that you can be around to really spark and elevate your work at an astronomical level. Yeah, it's been a journey, and it's very clear to me that I have chosen the right path.
It's so moving, and I really appreciate you sharing about your father and these extraordinary passages of death and grief and inspiration, in becoming the next generation. Becoming, like, there's something that happens when your parents pass, where it's you. And you have to take everything that they were, everything that they've learned, and as well as everything you can feel into the future, and be the carrier of that message. You mentioned the Thunderbird and the eagle. Can you share more about that?
Aren't we all a little bit of everything? We're all something interconnected. And being around Indigenous tribes and elders and mentors, one being Doug Redhell Panetta, a big one of mine that really helped amongst many, but a key organizer in sparking Standing Rock, just learning about the Lakota and the tie of the Thunderbird. Learning more, I still need to dive into the symbolism of power and strength. I interpret it as unity, and of course the goal, there's discussions or differences between tribal leaders, putting those aside and coming together Just like with our debates, these candidates have all different viewpoints, but our debates they're not arguments, they're discussions. But we tag it as debates because you get more exposure as a debate. But I really tell the candidates, like, please respect one another's from kindness, nonviolent, and just be kind to one another and respect each other's viewpoints. And so far, that's been the case. And my goal is to continue to keep it that way. The Eagle is really my family. My father and aunt owned a home in Shawano, Wisconsin, and for, I think, decades, 10, 20 years. And it had the largest tree on the lake. And up in it was the eagle's nest. They like to nest in the largest, the tallest, that is, tree on the lake. And so the symbolism of the eagle, very impactful as well for our country. I love it. I love the song Fly Like an Eagle, Steve McCarthy. I met him at a gym show, the writer. I was working a gym show because that's what I did on the side to build free and equal elections. And that helped me open up my retail shop, those connections. And a gentleman walked up by the name of Steve McCarty, and it had this song playing, Fly Like an Eagle. And he's like, I wrote that song. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And he also wrote Wild Mountain Honey. And the Fly Like an Eagle, the words are escaping me at the moment, but I know it when I sing it out loud. But there's a beautiful version by DJ Taz and Fly Like an Eagle. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I'm going to fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly right through the revolution. That's it. We're going to fly right through the revolution into the evolution. And that's what the eagle represents to me.
I had goosebumps there. Fly right through the revolution.
Fly like an eagle. Fly right through the revolution. Feed the babies. I mean, the words of that, house the children, house the people. I mean, really, what a song.
And so I just want you to share for anyone that is listening and feeling still somewhat cynical about politics, or there's a lot of smart people that you meet that say, I'm not into politics, or I'm not political. For them, can you just share what is it that you really feel is possible within our current political system, the way in which this system can change to be more fit for the future that we want to create?
So the first part is 18 to 28-year-olds, probably 14 to 28-year-olds now, are the game changers, or the voters that we're going to really, of course, all invited, but that's going to be really statistically speaking, in the polls, that the individuals are going to come out and vote first and foremost. And so that's a big pocket of individuals that are pro changes coming. And then you have that big neutral pocket of like apathetic. Those are going to be, the individuals are going to be easier to shift. As soon as they see something, they're going to be like, okay, the naysayers, the train's coming. You can either hop on, or you can watch it and miss the fun. But when you see the solutions, just know that train will come back, or you can get on a different stop, if not right away. But as you see your vote being able to count, as I said earlier, candidates running that you're inspired by, you're seeing fun and music. And oh my God, I can't believe that artist, Tom McDonald, #1 rap artist, independent, is he's in our network too, is supporting United We Stand. He's awesome. I want to go see him. But wait, oh, well, wow. You mean my vote might actually count? We might go off paper ballots and have blockchain voting, or you can have blockchain voting where you cast your paper ballot and then you can go on the chain and make sure your vote counts. That'd be pretty cool. It seems like a very simple solution, right? Compared to what we have now, casting a vote and not knowing Dominion, default Dominion. And we've seen recent articles on that. I've talked to comptrollers and Secretary of States that have said that it lacks integrity. They've seen the changes directly within these are neutral people in office, D's and R's. They are like, these machines don't work. I don't hold it against people that are cynical. I get it. If you haven't voted, fine. But once and when you have a reason to vote and you see all these things and solutions rise, then please reconsider getting involved, because this is the time to do it and let go of the naysaying. So you're the last pocket we're going to go towards, but you're totally welcome to come on board. And what is possible, I thought, with solutions is that I put on annual, probably for 5 or 7 years, electoral reform symposiums, because I wanted to learn from experts what the solutions would be. And I've learned from political professors, almost like scientists, like professors, about the details of gerrymandering and how the solution is to bring in private entities that implement. And I have videos that'll be put into the app that show how gerrymandering can be done in an accountable manner. Solution: ballot access. The fact that it takes 800,000 signatures for an independent presidential candidate to get on the ballot, meaning if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doesn't get the Democratic nomination next spring, he has a chance to run as an independent, but it's going to take 800,000 signatures versus only 30 to 50,000, give or take, to run as a Democrat or Republican. So when we get the right people in office, we should first make the rules the same for everyone. Democrat, Republican, who can argue? I mean, that's just logic. I mean, I would see most people agreeing. I don't want to say argue, but I see most people aligning with that. Accountable people in office, the same for third parties and independent candidates. So those are some solutions to the gerrymandering. Alternative voting methods. My goodness, singular vote. Shame on the people in office for allowing singular vote to be even in existence, because when Nader ran, and I think it was in 2004, they pulled this whole hoax of, oh, you wasted your vote on Nader, and Al Gore didn't win, and we got, was it Bush at that time? I mean, when I think of Clinton, Bush, and Obama, I just follow the money. It's just different faces, to be frank. So in Florida, and dozens of other candidates ran against Nader, where if one of those didn't run, that would have changed the vote as well. But they had to find a scapegoat, a reason to scare people, and pulled the "you wasted your vote." Shame on you. All you need to do is implement instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting. The Grammys knows how to use it. We should know how to use it, and one day we will. And under ranked choice voting, you can have 5 different people running for office, and you rank your vote from the highest to lowest. And you can look at it on fairvote.org and learn about it. But it gets rid entirely of the wasted vote, which it was a non-issue. But again, this is the fear tactic. So these are some very brief ideas of solutions. Of course, we got to open the presidential debate. So I'm like, okay, I'll put on presidential debates and open them up, which we're opening them up furthermore and allowing people through the blockchain app this fall to vote who's going to be in the first round of debates. So we'll have those details coming together soon, as I have a walkthrough for our venue when I return from Bali the end of this month, which is exciting, with our team in Los Angeles, is looking like the kickoff for the series tour. So there's so many more solutions. Those are just a few that I covered. And I look forward to having them easily accessible in our blockchain app, so we, the people, can learn, as well as the candidates that not only are going to run, but think about somebody in your community that you would like to have run, and go to them and say you want them to run, and that you're going to be there to support them, because those are the people we want, that aren't necessarily seeking to run, but are already making positive change in their community. I can think of a few in Cambria, and I've already done it. I've gone to a few and asked them to run, and they're doing it. That's how we make the change.
And what is your call to action for everyone that is listening that you'd like to leave us with?
If you'd like to learn more about free and equal, I think the call to action was really put throughout this whole conversation, but there's more details at free and equal, freeandequal.org. And we're on Linktree as well, /free and equal. So that has all of our platforms. And the call to action is we'll, in the coming months, if not sooner, have a sign up to be a part of our presidential debate this fall. United We Stand will present, so we hope that you can make it there. Our plan right now is to make tickets. I've given free tickets in the past, and it's just, if you don't have any value on it, people won't show up. You think that, or some do, but not as many. And I want to make it affordable to all. So my goal is like $17.76. Don't hold me to it, but I really want to make it open to the people. So on a more national level, run for office. Volunteer for a candidate you support, get involved in your local community, register to vote, and maybe it's not as cleaned up as the voting system's going to be one day, but get engaged, get involved, because it's going to be one day. The latter's not an option. We're going to have full transparency on the blockchain ledger. We're going to be able to see what's right, what is not right. And AI and many other components of We the People are going to help and enable us to see what's real and what isn't real. A very bright light is about to shine on. And I love that you brought that up earlier, that there's this real strong fight, when a system's about to collapse. And I see that too. And so let's prepare for that collapse. It's fighting hard by having something to replace it. So it's a peaceful transition, and that's where we come in. So there's just some ideas of how you can take action. Please do what resonates with you.
Beautiful, Christina. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared and everything that you're doing, and for anchoring that power and hope and light and solutions back into all of us.
Amisha, thank you again for what you do and all the beautiful people out in the world that are already doing what you're doing. And we look forward to seeing you on the train. Thank you so much for your time, Amisha, today. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed getting to know you on a friendship, personal level, and it's an honor to have been asked to be a part of what you love doing. It's very clear, and I'm here to support you long term as well with your endeavors.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has sparked some inspiration and creativity in you. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on allthatweare.org. We give space to our guests to share their perspective without debating it or fact-checking, as this approach allows for deep, unedited conversations from the heart. We trust your discernment and wisdom to take what is useful and challenge what isn't in your own understanding. We offer spaces for discussion and integration in our membership community, which we would love for you to join. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible by you, our beautiful community. If you loved this and would like to connect more deeply with us, please join our membership. You choose what you contribute based on our sliding scale, and you become a patron whose support makes this podcast happen, as well as receiving access to a library of many resources and invitations to nourishing events. Please also hit subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen so others can find us. This podcast is made by an all-female global team. Me, Amisha Gadiali, producer and host, Anna Greta Folderbach, who crafts the words that accompany each episode, and Mary Chan, who edits the sound so skillfully. All That We Are celebrates all that we are already and the untapped potential that lives inside us. It invites the full power of the more than human world, nature, the unseen, our ancestors, and our future generations. It reminds us that we never exist in silo, through borders, timelines, or polarity, that in each and every moment, all that we are is here.